Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Breakthrough Club. If any of you guys, this is new to you, just to give you a perspective, as Flawless and Bound, we always interview leaders, business leaders, sales leaders, and marketing leaders, especially in B2B organizations who we think they're doing something unique and different for their audience, for their market, and actually bringing value. So with great honor and pleasure today, I would like all of us to welcome Gary Pokorn to our show, The Breakthrough Club. Gary, thank you so much for giving us the time today.
Sahar, it's my pleasure and my honor to be invited to join you and your audience at your Breakthrough Club.
Beautiful. So before we go into knowing more about Gary, first of all, tell me, from where are you dialing from?
Well, I'm based in Denver, Colorado, and I'm currently speaking to you from the Oracle Corporation Denver Tech Center office complex, just southeast of downtown Denver.
Amazing, amazing. So Gary, now I want you to introduce yourself to the audience today.
Well, my name is Gary Pokorn, and I am a Master Sales Enablement Advisor for the NetSuite Global Business Unit of Oracle Corporation. I primarily work with NetSuite resellers to help them grow their NetSuite practice. And my primary focus with our resellers is how to approach net new accounts beyond their known relationships. Most of our resellers are successful businesses that already have successful clients that they count on for selling repeat professional services and so forth. And so one of the keys to be successful with the NetSuite reseller program is a partner's ability to sell to new accounts outside of their known relationships. And so that's the area of sales enablement that I typically gravitate towards.
Amazing. So, and we always hear this from clients, especially B2B, that how can I get net new logos into my book of business? And I think that's, Gary, that's your specialty. So your role is a Master Sales Enablement Advisor for the Oracle NetSuite Global Business Unit. I want to guess, like, how many resellers have you coached and trained over the last few years? Are we speaking tens? Are we speaking hundreds?
Well, the NetSuite partner ecosystem is a smaller ecosystem than a lot of software publishers. Globally, we have about 600 partners. I specialize in North America. Mm-hmm. In North America, we have about 250 partners. And since 2011, I have been helping onboard every new NetSuite partner in North America. And for a few years until we added a colleague who's multilingual, I was also helping our Latin American partners for a few years. So I probably worked with maybe 300 NetSuite resellers since 2011.
So Gary, it seems that you know one or two things about sales, and that's why we have you today on the call. So tell us more about your history. Like, who's Gary? How did you start, and all this kind of good stuff?
Well, you would think of me as a career sales professional. I've always been in the technology sales field, always in the business-to-business segment of technology sales, and always selling business applications within that business-to-business segment. And so throughout my career, I have been an individual contributor, selling to small, medium, and enterprise-sized accounts throughout my career. I have been a frontline sales manager, leading sales teams. And then I have also been a second-level sales director, working more from a strategic perspective than the tactical side of the equation. And for a short period of time, I actually had my own consulting practice. I had always wanted to try working for myself. I did that for 4 years and then decided that I'm more of a herd animal. I enjoy being part of a team instead of the outsider. So that's when I came back into corporate America, if you will.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and I think with the history that you're sharing with us, I would think you've noticed a lot of technology shifts during your career. I would love you to speak to the audience more about those technology shifts and how sales were evolving during that shift as well.
Yes, I've been fortunate throughout my career to witness underlying market shifts of technology. Today, of course, there's a lot of buzz around the shift to cloud computing, cloud technology. This is the sixth shift. I've made a living during this shift. And every time underlying technology in the marketplace shifts, there are winners and there are losers. Because not only does technology shift, but the solution set that we offer changes and our competitive mix changes. But most importantly, the way buyers buy changes. And so today, one of the things that I try to focus on with my partner community is to get a better understanding of how modern buyers buy. Most of my partners, resellers, most of my partners are like you, Sahar. They're experienced, they're successful, they've been in business for decades in some cases, and they built successful businesses. They know what they're doing. And like me, most of the folks I work with have been classically trained with the sales methodologies and the sales techniques and the thought leadership in the sales profession, most of which is grounded literally from last century. And so if you think about spin selling, strategic selling, solution selling, and on, that thought leadership originated in the 1980s and in the 1990s. Even qualification techniques that some of my partners use, like BANT, budget, authority, need, time frame. BANT originated in the IBM era of the 1960s.
Wow.
Well, the modern buyer in the marketplace today buys differently than the way we used to sell to them last century. So I've been fortunate in my career to have my clients help me understand how they want to buy, what they want to buy, when they want to buy, how they're going to justify it, etc. And so I have always been blessed with the ability to ask my customer how I can help them in a genuinely curious way. And in the marketplace today, buyers will help sellers that are genuinely interested in helping the buyer accomplish whatever their goals are. But the seller has to be genuinely interested. It can't be contrived. It can't be some gaming tactic that we learned from previous sales training sessions where we're trying to trick the customer into giving answers to some of our questions in order to lead them to our product. Buyers today are smarter than that. They're impatient. And so we need to add value when we walk in the door. And the best way I know of to add value is to follow Mehan Khalsa's guidance from his thought leadership, Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play, where he spoke of take the product or the service off the table when you meet with a prospect and stay focused on the prospect. Just understand the business problem the prospect is trying to overcome. And if you stay focused on the prospect, at least in my personal professional experience, they will share with you what they're trying to do. Now, in some cases, what they're trying to do may mean that you find out very quickly that your product or service is not a good fit for what they're trying to do.
And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That you
That's
know
a
this
good
early.
thing, Sahar. Yes, that's a good thing. In the sales profession, I like to tell my partners, we are in the business of winning business or losing it quickly. So I want to take advantage of the fact that the modern buyer has already done preliminary research before our very first meeting. So when I walk in the door, we can get down to the crux of the matter very quickly and get to the essence of their situation. And I've always believed the first sales rep that understands the essence of the customer's circumstance will win the business. And so in some cases, the essence, as I mentioned, means that they're really not intending to buy our product or service. We're not a good fit, but I want to find that out quickly. I don't want to waste my time, or worse, I don't want to waste the prospect's time going down some path that's going to be a dead end. And so I just as soon excuse myself early in that process if I'm a bad fit. And I don't mind telling the prospect, Miss Prospect, Mr. Prospect, I don't think my company's products or services would be a good fit for you. And so I recommend that I take a step away so that you can concentrate your energies in other areas that are better aligned with what you're trying to do. And Sahar, I learned that lesson in a very fortunate way many years ago with a $2 billion grocery store chain in Chicago, Illinois, who hired a chief information officer. This was many years ago. It was the first time I'd ever heard that title, a CIO, a chief information officer. And this grocery store chain had budgeted $10 million and brought in this person to lead a technology transformation. At the time, I was selling a mainframe-based solution, literally from Dave Duffield's preceding company to PeopleSoft. They called Integral Systems. And we had a very elegant deployment of a payroll HR benefits administration solution running on an IBM mainframe platform using IBM's new DB2 database system. And the problem was the CIO's strategy was to move off of mainframes into a mini computer technology configuration, taking advantage of what was emerging at that time called the IBM AS400 mini computer series. So the problem is I had the right application functionality. In fact, I had won the business. And before they signed the contract, the CIO asked me face to face, Gary, do you think I should buy your product? And I said, no, I don't think you should. And he looked at me and said, well, why not? I said, because my product runs on a mainframe and your strategy is to move off of mainframes into mini computers. There are other better solutions in the marketplace that align with your strategy. And he respected that honesty so much. He actually tried to hire me as a manager of applications development. I told him, his name was Bill. I said, Bill, I'm a sales guy. I'm not a manager. I'm not an application developer. He said, Gary, you know what you're doing. And so that always stuck with me, that I understood the essence of what he was trying to accomplish. And even though I had a product that was very competitive and we had a sales position that was very strong, it was actually on their old platform and not aligned with their next strategic platform. So he didn't buy from my company. He did buy from a company I told him that I thought he should buy from, and successfully pursued his strategic direction of moving from mainframe technology to mini computer technology, which for that grocery store chain was important for the flexibility and the nimbleness that technology shift would afford them. So that always stuck with me. And today I share with my partners, just ask the customer what they're trying to accomplish. And if you're genuine and if you're curious, they will tell you because they want you to get it right. We're in this together. And so they want you to get it right and they'll help you. And that's always stuck with me.
Gary, I really love this example, because sometimes as salespeople, as a sales leader who's having sales reps, usually you're focused on making your numbers on monthly, on quarterly basis. And sometimes you miss really why you're doing all of this. You really want to help your customers and you want to build a better brand for your business. And you want to be approached as a trusted advisor, really. And I think this is an amazing story that embody the true culture of a sales rep or a sales leader who's trying to add value. Gary, I want to take you back a little bit. You spoke about 6 technology shifts in your career. Would you be okay to share with the audience what were those 6 technology shifts
Sure.
that you went through as a sales leader?
Sure. When I entered the technology business, the market was starting to shift from custom homegrown applications running on very sophisticated, very expensive mainframe technology for enterprise companies. And in the small and medium-sized segment of the marketplace, there was a lot of manual processes and literally what was called back then bookkeeping machines from
Wow.
like Burroughs and others. And so the market was shifting when I entered the business to an alternative called outsourcing. And I worked for a company called ADP in the payroll business. And we needed to sell our prospects on the concept of let ADP do the computation for you. Let's outsource the application processing for you. So that was the shift that was occurring when I entered the business. And then the second shift when I was in the industry, as I mentioned to you, I was working for Integral Systems, which was the second company Dave Duffield started. He also started PeopleSoft. He also started Workday.
Wow.
In the Integral Systems days, the market was shifting to affordable mainframe technology. IBM had come out with what I'll call smaller mainframes called the 4300 series. And there were database companies like Culinet and Adabase and even IBM who were introducing a database architecture to make reporting and information analysis more readily available for businesses. So I moved from an outsourcing position into a mainframe native database deployment situation. That's the situation I was in when I was selling to that grocery store chain. The market then shifted from mainframes to what's called mini computers. There was a company called DEC, and they had a DEC VAX machine. And from a marketing standpoint, Sahar, they marketed it as the mainframe killer. It was expensive. It was easy to operate. It could be set up department by department. So the market shifted the third time in my career to a mini computer configuration. And from there, that brought on Oracle Corporation and others with a configuration of technology called client server. And Unix was an operating system that was ubiquitous to different hardware configurations. And so we moved from mini computers to client server.
I want to tell you, this was the time I graduated from engineering. Just to let you know, that was the time. I now can relate to that part of the shift. So
So now we're in the mini computer client server shift. Client server being the fourth. The challenge behind client server is it worked fine with local area networking. It was not good for dispersed locations. And so client server begot something called web-based front ends. And there was technology created by a company called Citrix and new devices that were introduced called PCs in this shift to web-based client server. And that, of course, fueled the popularity of personal computing. That was the fifth shift. And then the sixth shift is this web-based front end lent itself to this phenomena we call today cloud computing and the phenomena of the internet and the empowerment of the buyer to gather a lot of information that they can use in their decision-making process without relying on a salesperson. And so, as I mentioned, when the salesperson enters the room today, the buyer has already done a lot of research behind their thinking and behind what they're planning. And so the salesperson has to be able to pick up the pace very quickly, very first meeting, in order to find out where is the buyer at in their journey and why did they take a meeting? How can I help them? Typically buyers still want a sales professional to help them, but the sales professional's role today is really a problem-solving role. It's not a sales presentation role. It's not a pitch role. The buyer relies today, I believe, on the salesperson to either mitigate the risk of decisions they've made. They just want to bounce it off somebody to, kind of hedge, or maybe they're stumped and they say, we know what we're trying to do. We can't seem to get there on our own. We need a little help. And so the sales professional today, I believe, is in a perfect position to use problem-solving skills, recognize the customer's circumstance, and really serve on the customer's side of the committee, if you will, in addressing matters that the customer may have overlooked or going deeper in areas that the customer needs more knowledge about. And we know as sales professionals, Sahar, today, we know when we're scoring points, when we hear the prospect say, Gary, I never thought about that before, or Gary, I never thought of it that way before. So we know we're scoring points when the customer verbally says, I didn't think about that. That's the value we bring to the table. So we are problem solvers, and the customer pays us for our thinking with transactions. So they buy a product as a way to pay us for our problem-solving skills. At least I believe that, and that's been my personal experience, both as an individual contributor, a leader of teams, and now in a sales enablement capacity where I'm helping my partner community understand where the power is in their personal power positions, what the customer really values. And it's not the product. All products work in the eye of a customer. Products have been ultimately commoditized in today's day and age, for better or for worse. So in the eye of the customer, I believe all products work. So then how do you differentiate yourself? And I believe the sales professional's most important area of differentiation is their thinking skills, their problem-solving skills.
Gary, I really love what you're saying. I'm taking a lot of notes here, and I hope the audience are really kind of tuning in to the core critical message that you're bringing to the table from a sales and a sales leadership perspective. And I have seen some of your presentations before where you were urging all solution partners to think, to position themselves out of the red box to the green box. And I love this explanation from you. I also believe that you build kind of a new model in selling. You give it a different name. So can you share that with the audience? Because it was a lot of value to us as a Flawless and Bound team. And I really want the audience to kind of know more about that.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to share my ideas. And for your audience's purpose, I hope they work.
I'm sure they will.
If I knew exactly what the answers were, well, I would have written a book and filmed a movie, and I'd own an island today. But I think these ideas resonate in the marketplace today. And I coach my audience to, the soundbite I use, Sahar, is sell in reverse. Sell in reverse. It used to be that we would have preliminary selling activities with a prospect where we would be seeking to build a relationship. And the prospect would be patient with us because we could begin with asking things of the prospect like, tell me about your business. I want to meet with you and I want you to educate me on your situation. And prospects used to be patient with that approach. And those baby steps would allow us to build a relationship with the prospect. They get to know us, we get to know them. We might build a certain level of trust. And as we went down that path, the prospect would then feel confident about placing a transaction with us. You know, not to belabor that grocery store chain story, but that particular transaction was an enterprise-sized transaction. And that CIO was betting his reputation on making the right decisions. That's why the company had hired him. But even in small and medium-sized circumstances, the decisions are just as important to the outcome of the business. So it used to be the old way that it was important to the salesperson and it was important to the customer to build a relationship, to establish trust and rapport before placing a big transaction. And big is defined whatever's big to the customer, right? It could be a small business that's buying outsourcing for the very first time, and they're literally betting their employee relationship, in the case of P, that the payroll checks are going to show up on time, right? So even if it's a small company, it's a big decision. It doesn't work that way anymore. The customer gathers all of those previous relationship building baby steps. They gather the information they need online today. And there's been a merging in the marketplace, a merging of the marketing profession and the selling profession, where in the eye of the customer, they get a lot of guidance, they get a lot of thought leadership from marketing professionals before they even meet with the salesperson. So today, when we walk in the door, if the customer takes a meeting, there's a reason. They're probably ready to transact. And I always coach my partners. If a prospect takes a meeting with you, I want you to be ready to transact, even if you're uncomfortable, even if it's your first meeting, even if you have no relationship, even if you've done no discovery or analysis. If the buyer's ready to buy, let them. Buyers today don't have to bet the ranch on their first transaction. Today, especially in the technology field, but in almost all fields, customers can place small transactions to test their vendor, to test their partner, to test their supplier. They're not going to bet the business with a 5-year commitment come hell or high water. They don't have to buy that way anymore. They can dial down the risk of their first transaction to get the vendor or the supplier or the partner to prove what the salesperson says we can do. The customer today can say now, all right, let's prove it. So the customer actually transacts, in my opinion, before they establish a relationship and before they establish trust. You're credible if you're timely, if your solution meets their need in their eyes, whether you even understand what their need is or not. If they say, Gary, I want to place an order for thus and so, whether I understand it or not, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me, because they're probably going to place a small order, validate success, validate goodness of fit. And if a sales professional today successfully manages the first couple of transactions that a new customer places with him or her, that customer will develop a relationship with the salesperson. The salesperson and their company will build trust with that customer. So it's exactly opposite. It used to be that we would develop a relationship, build trust, and then transact. Today in the marketplace, I believe people buy. And if the transaction succeeds, they will transact again with that provider, and they will come to trust that provider. And of course, we all know this is the case because how many of us continuously buy on the consumer side of the equation through Amazon or other online sites where we're buying something from somebody that we think is going to work, but in the back of our mind, it's probably a small transaction. So we'll place an initial order. If it's delivered on time, if the product is as specified, then we can easily go back and we can place a larger order and take more risk with a supplier, but it's a known risk because that supplier's already earned our trust by how they handled the initial transactions.
I really love what you're saying, Gary. And I think like even inside of Flawless Unbound, we totally believe in this concept of selling in reverse. As our marketing team, we work into kind of building marketing-driven collateral to educate the buyer before even they engage with us or our clients. We believe that even 60 to 70% of the sales process starts before even the organization and their sales rep know about it. So I like this resonates very well with at least our playbooks. The other thing also, I like what you're saying, especially for the sales team, that when you are kind of trying to prepare your sales rep to go and capture new market, it's okay for them not to be that aggressive and kind of apply the selling in reverse process that you mentioned before, because that helps them remove the pressure of, hey, I want to just transact a bigger deal. I think if you help me today and hopefully help the audience understand that with small transactions, the customer is actually building a risk mitigation process. They are investing in the trust, and we are investing in the trust with exactly as you said, those small transactions, building blocks, phased implementation approaches, add-on licensing. If you're in manufacturing, there will be like more, you're building a relationship with your distribution, and then slowly they bring 1 or 2 deals. And then in 6 months, they're going to bring 120, 300 deals into your organization. So I can literally see what you're explaining in a lot of industries, especially B2B industries. So that's, wow, that's very valuable. I'm taking a lot of notes here. That's amazing. So I'll ask you a couple of questions, Gary. So in the last 6 months, particularly, right? I know, starting March, COVID hits, a lot of things are happening. And of course, a lot of organizations still hope and wish that we are 2019, that maybe it will never happen again. And I noticed that a lot of organizations, successful organizations mainly, are one who are leaning forward to the future and embracing sales and marketing approaches and so on. So give me your experience in the last 6 months. How did you see organizations are evolving and how they're going around the challenges we're facing right now?
Well, certainly during this pandemic, we've faced challenges in the modern year that I can't remember facing anything exactly like this before. We've been through recessionary periods and we've been through other periods of fear. I can remember, back in the Y2K era, that in the end of the 90s, there was a lot of fear in the marketplace that building elevators weren't going to work and the world as we know it was going to come to an end because all of the software programs that ran all of the machinery on the stroke of midnight, December 31st, 1999, everything was going to go dead. And as it turned out, it didn't turn out that way. But the fear in the marketplace today, I believe, is real. And there are companies that aren't making it because they weren't prepared. Nobody was prepared on purpose to face this challenge that we've seen over the past several months. So what I coach salespeople to do in the marketplace today, to the best of my ability, is it really emphasizes, I think, a salesperson's level of awareness and a salesperson's level of business acumen. When they approach a prospect or even an existing client today, I believe that if the customer takes the phone call or takes a meeting, right, that they fall into one of 3 distinct categories. Either that prospect is in crisis mode, they're not buying anything from anybody, they're trying to figure out, what the future might bear for them. And it's probably not a good account for a sales rep to attempt to sell anything non-essential, right? So if marketing or sales originates contact with a company that's in crisis mode, it's probably not a good time for us to invest a lot of time trying to sell something to them. We might come across a company that's treading water as the second category. They're in business, they're hanging on to the best of their ability. They hope and they pray and they're working diligently to get through this. And those types of companies, we might have essential products or services that are important to them. And so we need to be sure, especially from a marketing and sales coordination standpoint, that we are dialed in, totally on target with exactly where our product and service fits, exactly the characteristics of an ideal customer for us. Because if we come across a customer that's treading water, we may be an essential supplier for them. And in fact, their current suppliers may be in crisis mode. And so we may be right place, right time to replace previous relationships with companies that weren't prepared for today's current event. So that second category of treading water category really places an emphasis, in my opinion, on knowing the characteristics of the type of an account that fits with the product or service we sell, and being diligent, being persistent, being professionally aggressive in communicating to that customer, we sell these things for these purposes. If you need these things for these purposes, and if your current supplier is not keeping up with you, now's the time to talk to us, right? Don't wait. Now's the time to talk, right? And then the third category is there's businesses in today's current circumstance that are actually thriving. They are essential providers of products or services, right? Think about Clorox disinfectant wipes, right? They can't pace. They can't put them on the shelves fast enough, right? And so the third category of customers are growing, maybe for unnatural or unplanned reasons, but they're growing nonetheless. And that growth is probably stressing their internal systems and their internal processes. And so again, this puts a premium on the marketing team and the sales team to craft a message that is on target for companies that are thriving during today's pandemic on why our products and services are critical to help that customer take advantage of the market opportunity, to expand, to grow. And they're actually making an investment with an anticipated significant return on that investment if they're in growth mode. So I always coach salespeople in today's marketplace. If the prospect takes your phone call, if they respond to your email, if they take a meeting, even a Zoom meeting, they're probably in one of those three categories. And kind of sticking with my theme that I shared with you earlier today, for whatever it's worth, if I were an individual contributor in the marketplace today and a customer took a meeting with me, I would look for an opportunity in that very first conversation to say to the customer, you know, I often find businesses in one of three categories in the calendar fourth quarter of the year 2020. They're either in crisis mode, they're treading water, or they're open for business and thriving. Miss Customer, Mr. Customer, what category would you describe yourself in? And I would ask them right up front to disclose the current situation. And then if they said, well, we're in crisis mode or we're treading water, well, that would lead me down the path of simply asking, how can I best help you? They probably had a reason for taking a meeting with me. So I don't have to go into a pitch yet. I don't have to give them a company image presentation. I don't have to tell them I've got the greatest products known to mankind yet. I'll do all of that a little bit later. But I can ask them right up front, how can I help you? And if I hear them say the phrase, Gary, the business problem we're trying to solve is, if the customer says that phrase, they've got my complete attention, I'm taking notes, they're about to tell me exactly what they're going to buy, exactly when they're going to buy it, exactly why they're going to buy it. And if I listen particularly carefully and ask some good probing questions, they'll even tell me how much they're willing to pay for it. So I can get to the essence.
That's amazing. Gary, can you hear me now? I think I lost the connection just for a second.
But
that's it. So my understanding is that you can get to the essence of really the core problem, and then now you understand why they booked the meeting with you, and then you can go on online from there.
Yeah.
Got it.
If they just book a meeting with us, they have a reason.
Correct.
We don't have to worry about all of the other situations in the marketplace that could possibly be taking place, because under those other situations and circumstances, the prospect isn't going to take our call. The prospect isn't going to respond to our email.
Very true.
So they actually self-identify for us in the marketplace today. And if we help them, they will tell us what they're trying to accomplish. And then we can decide very quickly whether we've got something that fits with what they're looking for or not.
Or not. Beautiful. And I like what you said. Win the business or lose it quickly. That's exactly what we're trying to go after. Gary, this is amazing. I'm sure the audience will be taking a lot of notes. I'm personally taking a lot of notes. So here's my final question for you for the day. What's the one big thing you want to leave with me and the audience today so that they can do things differently and how they grow the business and do things?
Well, I don't know about doing things differently. Your audience, I'm sure, has lots of successful knowledge and successful techniques and successful tools. So, of course, if what they're doing is working, keep doing it. There's a lot of ways for a sales professional to thrive in our profession. The one thing I'll leave you with is I find the foundation of my success is that I've been coachable throughout my career, and I start with a premise that I don't know. I don't know. And so whether I'm working for a manager, whether I'm working with a sales trainer, whether I'm working with a customer, I begin from a position of I don't know, which allows me to have an open mind when whoever I'm speaking with is saying, well, let me help you, Gary, let me help you. And so throughout my career, I have been willing and very open to help. And I've been very genuine about that. And I have literally had customers take me under their wing when I didn't understand what they were trying to do. And I would tell them, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that is. And I have had customers very patiently explain to me, in some cases, layman's terms, right? I've had customers go the extra mile. They want me to understand because they want to get to the crux of the matter quickly also. So I would say to the sales professionals and the marketing professionals in the marketplace today, customers will tell us what they want if we ask them, but we have to ask them, and we have to be genuine. They will spot contrived techniques and wordsmithing and gamesmanship. You know, they've been burned in the past by all that stuff. So they're smarter in the marketplace today. And so they can tell genuine interest in their situation. They can tell it quickly. They can tell it by the way you respond to an email. They can tell it by the way you post thought leadership on your website. Prospects in the marketplace today know what they're looking for. So we're not in the business, and what I like to say to the NetSuite partners I work with, we are not in the business of converting the unwilling. We are in the business of finding businesses that are thinking about moving to modern technology. They're thinking about investing in their business system infrastructure. They're thinking about making internal improvements that will improve their financial performance, the value of their company, their ability to compete, their ability to grow. They know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for. So if we ask them, they will tell us. And we can psychologically win their business early, very first meeting early. The modern buyer buys psychologically in the very first interaction, I believe, they have with a sales professional today. They decide, all right, that's the company I want to buy from. That's the product I want to buy from. That's the person I want to buy from. They're still going to take us through a thorough evaluation. They're still going to mitigate risk.
Of course.
They're still going to have to, we're still going to have to fight it out with competitive alternatives and so forth. But I submit for your audience's consideration, their prospect decides in your very first meeting. So you better be ready to shine in your very first meeting, and you better avoid all of the contrived stuff, and you better come across as a good problem solver, somebody who's a good listener, somebody who can stay focused on the customer, somebody who's not afraid when the customer says, well, Gary, you know, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, and I've got $100 to spend on it, and what I sell is $100,000. I can't be afraid to say to the customer, I don't sell one of those. What I sell is $100,000. You have $100. I'm not a good fit. Why don't I step back, step away, so you can go find what you're looking for? And then as I'm walking out the door, I can say to him, by the way, if you don't find what you're looking for,
I'm still here.
I'm still here. Let me know, right? Because it could be that what they're looking for is unrealistic. But sales professionals today deal in reality. And so the customer can tell. And so that's the one big thing is we don't have to do all of the heavy lifting. It's hard to get in front of a customer today. It's hard to get in front of a new prospect, harder than ever. But once we're there, we're there. Once we're in, we're in. And as long as we stay professionally appropriate, as long as we're good listeners, once we're into an account, we're into an account. And maybe this particular transaction is a bad fit. There's going to be other transactions.
Wow.
Our job is to penetrate into those accounts. And once we're in, we're in. And maybe we will find incremental transactions without working extra hard. The hard part is getting in. Once you're in, the customer will help you.
Yeah, there will be a moment of inertia if you're really doing the right thing, which is everything you have been sharing with us the last hour. Gary, I just want to tell you one thing. I personally feel I was interviewing the Yoda of sales enablement for mid-sized to large organization today. I took a lot of notes. I'm sure the audience took a lot of notes today. We're not in the business of converting the unwilling. This is golden nuggets. Like I will remember them forever. If you're going to lose the deal, lose it quickly. Amazing. Find the essence of the situation and the problem. Be a problem solver, not a sales rep. This is amazing, amazing insight. Gary Pokorn, Master Sales Enablement Advisor for the NetSuite Global Business Unit for Oracle Corporation. It was a pleasure and a personal honor for me to just interview you for a full hour. I'm sure the audience took a lot of notes. Thank you so much for your time today. Always a pleasure, Gary.
Sahar, I appreciate the invitation. I hope this helps your audience. It's been a joy for me, and I appreciate Flawless Inbound and your business for business positioning in the marketplace. It's not B to B, it's B for B. And customers need us in the marketplace today. So for all of your audience that's listening, keep fighting the good fight. Customers need you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
My
Have
pleasure.
a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.